Hello, everyone. It is Suzanne Hart here, your Mindset Mastery mentor, and it is another conversation about mindset mastery. So, first of all, happy 4th of July for all my American friends, as well as happy belated Canada Day, if you can say that, which was July 1 for all our Canadians. I had the most fabulous Canada Day weekend. I went to Montreal, la belle province, Montreal, and hung out with some of my Canadian friends and had an absolute fantastic time with people I have not seen in years. Like, I mean, literally, it's like since I was in my late 20s. So it was a fabulous, fabulous time. So hello, Lester. Happy 4th of July. Yes. And I hope I'm trusting that you're having a fantastic time in Phoenix. Hot. Can we say hot in Phoenix? I've been to Phoenix at that time of year. It is hot. So our conversation today is about communication mastery. And my title is, Are You Reacting or Responding? And so as you come on, hello, Lester. As you come on, what I'd like you to do is, first of all, communicate with me and with everyone else. So communicate who you are, where you're hailing from, what you do, and what brought you out tonight, right? So what do you do, entrepreneur or for a living, where you're from, because we want to get to know you, because every live we do is an opportunity for you to network, and it really actually works. Because consider, and whether you're listening to the recording or you're listening live, consider that people come back and they listen to these recordings, people join in them in the middle of them, and they may see that you are a coach. They may see that you are a retired police officer, right? And that you're also a speaker in that genre. And they'll say, oh my gosh, I have to connect with this person. So you want to let people know what you're doing and what you do for a living, where you're from, so we can start that passive kind of networking working for you, because when you're not here, the live will still be here. Second thing I want you to do is, we're talking about communication mastery, right? Communication mastery. And this is what's happening in your head before you actually speak. That's what we're going to focus on. And so if you believe that this is a topic that must be heard by your group, someone you know, please bless a live and pass it on. That means pass it on to a group, pass it on to a friend, because knowledge is power when it is utilized in a sequential way, right? That's what Napoleon Hill says, is when we put knowledge to use in an organized fashion. But knowledge is also more powerful when we share it, right? When we bless it to someone else and we get in communication about what we've learned. The next thing I'm going to ask you to do is, as you listen to this live, when you hear something that is going to bless you, something that you think, oh my gosh, that is extraordinary, please do put it into use, because that's the second thing. Knowledge just living in your head, rattling around, is not powerful. But when you act on it, that's when changing and transformation begins to occur. So, as I said, my name is Suzanne Hart. I hail from just out Ontario, Canada, just outside of Toronto, smack dab between Toronto and Montreal, for those of you that don't know me. And my topic today is, are you reacting or responding? This is communication mastery. All right. And this is so key for me, because my ability to communicate shifted as I got older. And I'm going to use a story that I've told before, partly because it's a great example of how communication really works. So, first of all, what is communication mastery? For me, it's your ability to be fully self-expressed. It is your ability to powerfully put your thoughts, your opinions, your ideas into the world. It is to connect, move, and inspire another person, and to express yourself. That's what it is. Now, you'll often hear that communication focuses on using the right language, using the right grammar, all those different things, all the things that we learn in school, and it is very much that. But to me, that's the tip of the iceberg. Communication in my world, hello, Deborah. Communication in my world starts way before that. And because I am talking about communication mastery and I'm talking about mindset mastery, I'm going to really connect our thinking, our feelings, and our communication when we speak it into existence. All right. So why is this so important? I want you to think of a moment in your life, and I have had a number of these happen, where an event has happened, something has happened, and you react, and words come out of your mouth that surprise you, or you behave in a way that even surprise you, and you kind of wonder, where did that come from? That is your internal communication at work. Hello, Cindy. Welcome. Right? That's your internal communication at work. And oftentimes it is our past actually activated and being acted on in the future. I'm going to say that again. It's our past being activated and acted on in the future. So I want you to consider that every single one of us has this invisible knapsack that we walk around with. It carries all our files, all our experience, all our thoughts, all our beliefs, all our fears, all our concerns, all those things, right? And we go through our day, and this baggage, what's in this knapsack, is running around in our head, sometimes consciously, and sometimes it's very unconscious, right? It's way down there. And so when an event happens, something happens in the present that reminds you of the past, you go into reaction and you start communicating with yourself. How many of you have had that happen? Right? Good evening, Turia. How many of you have had that happen? Right? Some event has occurred and it brings something from the past back into the future, and that is how your communication is occurring. Now, why is this so important? Because we're talking about communication. Communication is speaking, right? But how my thoughts, right, create my feelings, and my thoughts are often what I speak into the world. So if I'm thinking things from my past that do serve me or don't serve me, it is going to influence what comes out of my mouth. It's going to influence what I create in the reality today. So for me, I find communication really fascinating, not just because of using the right language and all that grammar stuff, but in terms of what's being communicated internally that shows up externally, and sometimes externally when we don't even know it's showing up. Okay, so let me give you an example, because this is the best way to share this idea. So when I was in grade 1, I had a teacher who I didn't like so much. I'm just going to say that. And I didn't like her because she embarrassed me. And what happened was she brought me up to the front of the room, she asked the class who wanted to read. I put my hand up and I was brought to the front of the room. And I was excited about reading because I knew how to read. And I was proud, I was excited. And I started to read, and every other sentence, my teacher corrected how I was enunciating the words. Now, this was the interesting thing. My family had just arrived from Trinidad, probably a few years earlier. So I was probably about 6, and we had arrived when I was 5. So I had a very strong West Indian accent, right? So it was very much in the way I talked. And no matter how much anybody tried to correct me, that accent would still show up. And so every time I started reading, my teacher would say, "Suzanne, that's not the way you pronounce the word." And I became embarrassed and I wanted to shrink. I actually felt myself shrinking, and it was probably the longest 2 to 3 minutes of my entire little life. And in that moment, I decided that I would never, ever, 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 can we underline ever, put my hand up in a classroom, ask a question, talk in front of the room, and risk embarrassing and humiliating myself like that again. I also decided that I was not a very good communicator. I also decided that I wasn't very smart. So, remember the knapsack. So packed in my knapsack is this dialogue. So we would call it our internal dialogue. So it's packed in there. right? So when I got to high school, I avoided any presentations that had me in front of the room. I got nervous if I had to be asked a question. It was a lot of anxiety. Why? Because I had this knapsack based on the decisions of a little girl, the communication of a little girl, of I'm not smart, I'm not going to risk being embarrassed, I can't talk very well, all these things running in the background. Okay? Now I get through college, I get through university, I have my 7 years of education, my 2 degrees, I go on to work, I climb that proverbial ladder, but this was the thing. Every single time I was asked to do a presentation that required that I stand in front of people, the communication would start. And sometimes it would start unconsciously, right? Unconsciously. I wouldn't know it was there, but it would, and I'd shy away. I'd say, no, you know what? That's not me. I'm shy. I don't do that things. I'm the behind the scene girl, so on and so forth. That was running me. Okay. My past being dragged into my future, and this dialogue is running me. So I'll give you, and I want to expand this because I want you really to understand the impact of our own communication on what we create in the world. So one time I decide, actually, I'm not given a choice. I'm told I have to do this presentation. So I go and I prepare, and I get to the day, and it's a room full of people, and it's a panel, and I'm one of the people on the panel, and I've prepared my presentation. The minute they call my name, my heart starts to race, my mouth gets dry, and my communication becomes almost the same as that little girl. I am stuttering, I'm not very coherent, I am quiet, and people are looking at me going, what on earth is going on? Because they know me. What's happening is past communication, my past beliefs, thoughts, ideas about how risky it is has just shown up. And in that moment, I become the little girl in front of the room, although it is about 30 years in 30 years past, 30 years in the future, that event happened 30 years ago. Because I haven't cleared it and I'm still carrying it, it's affecting my communication. It's affecting my communication in so many different ways and I'm not even aware. Okay? So what I want to ask you is, what events, beliefs, experiences are running you in the background that you are communicating to the world that you don't know about, that you may not be aware of? And it's things we say. We say to people, and we say about ourselves what we can do, what we can't do. And all they are past communications, past thoughts, beliefs that we are consistently telling ourselves and deciding about ourselves over and over and over again. So why is this so important? Because communication doesn't start when we start talking. It isn't the words that are coming out of our mouth. Communication started when you woke up this morning. And that voice that's constantly talking to you is creating your reality, and you're speaking the impact of that voice into the world, and you're now creating your reality. Are you guys getting this? You're now creating your reality. And if that reality isn't serving you, you may want to reflect and go back and go, I'm required to shift my communication. Now, anybody who has mentored, spent time with me will know that I'm very, very in tune to language. I'm very in tune to the communication that I say, that the people around me say. I'm very in tune to what people say to me. And I know someone will ask me, are you getting sick? And I'll say, don't say that to me. That communication and me don't go together, right? Because I know the power of my words. I know the power of my thoughts. And this is what I know. I create a few times. One, in my speaking, right? In my thoughts. And then I create in my speaking. And then I create things as real in my actions. If you really get this, if I'm creating 3 times, once, my thought, 2, speaking my thoughts into the world, and 3, either acting on my thoughts or creating the environment to which people react or respond to me. And in my communication, I'm teaching the world who I am and how to interact with me. So if this is something that you see yourself doing, this is making sense for you. The word today is mastermind. Definitely put that in the comment section. We'll make sure that you know there's a gift that's going to be able to go out to check for you to check your communication. But if that's something that's really interesting to you, definitely put mastermind, and also let us know what your thoughts are. What are you getting so far? I'm just going to go read. Oh, hi, Deanne. Oh, my goodness, it must be my 4th of July gift. Hi, Deanne. Haven't seen you in forever. Deanne's from Maryland. She's a holistic practitioner, detox specialist, educator, and speaker. We have the beautiful Dawn Jones, one of my Covenant sisters, hanging out. And Dawn is a website designer. She does so many beautiful things. So if you want to develop a website, you want to look on point, this is your gal. We have our social media strategist, Miss Charia. Oh, and we have next week's guest timing in, Deborah Ferdinand. And she says triggers will influence your communication. And she's going to talk more about that. This is the master editor. This is, she's going to be next week's guest, and we're going to talk about the power of words. We're going to continue this conversation, but from a writing perspective. We have retired police officer, Lester Bailey joining us. So welcome, everyone. And so really, I want you to begin to think about your communication, and I want you to think about how you can begin to shift your communication, right? Because it is, I am known in the world by how I communicate with the world, how I interact with the world, and how I know I'm managing my communication. And I remember I asked the topic was, are you reacting or responding? Okay. So I'm going to give you another example because I want to really share with you reaction and how the world shifts when you react. So when I was younger, Black female, and I would go into boutiques around where I lived, right, where I went to school, and I would notice when I'd go into a boutique that I would get tagged. In other words, someone who works in the boutique would start to follow me around, and I guess her concern was young Black woman. Possibly I'm going to shoplift. Perfect stereotype, right? Now, this was the interesting thing, was as soon as I get that tag, I would start getting a little upset. And I would start behaving in the manner to which the stereotypical thing would be. I get shifty, I get a little lippy, I would get nervous, I would get annoyed. And what I realized was my internal communication was that I sometimes believed some of the beliefs that they have. I was annoyed, and I let the communication about her perceptions and stereotypes about who I possibly could be impact my behavior. It angered me. So my communication was one of anger, one of frustration, one of upset. And when I reflect on it, I was behaving very much the way stereotypically she believed I would. And what I realized was I had internalized her belief, the belief that I had internalized the stereotypes without even knowing and I was defending it like I had something to defend. Now, I'm sharing this because I want you to get how important our communication is, right? And it touched me because somewhere inside of me, I hadn't resolved the stereotypes. Because we only react to things that are incomplete in our world. I'm going to say that again. We only react to things that happen in our world that trigger us internally. That's why we react, because it's something that still, we have a wound, we have a scar, it's a sensitivity, it's something that we haven't worked through, and that's often why we react. It's a soft spot, if you will. So this stereotype was still a soft spot for me, right? And so a few years later, I did a race relations training. I became a race relations trainer, cultural competency trainer, and I had done this whole exploration on race, ethnicity, culture, stereotypes, and it was a whole educational process. And what it did was it began to shift my beliefs and my communication internally about who I was, what I was required to defend, what I was not required to defend. It shifted my belief about myself. What would happen then was when I would go into a store and I get the same people trailing me, I would not react. I would actually begin to respond, and I would actually turn around and say, hey, how are you? And the woman would be a little shaken and she'd go, oh, I'm fine. And I go, oh, this is really pretty. And I would engage her, but I'd engage her from this place of power, in this place of I belong here, in this place of I don't have to explain myself to you, right? Because I was no longer triggered because I had done my work. You guys getting this? So now I was able to respond to her in the present versus react to her from past beliefs, experience, and unresolved issues. So my communication shifted. Now, this is why this is so important. As I continued to go to that store, I became one of their valued customers. I became the person that when I walked into the store, they're like, hey, Suzanne, how are you? A few years later, they were tagging me and trailing me. Now they knew me by name. People were rushing to provide me service because I was a great patron. My communication, my body language, my interaction, how I chose to be, taught the members of that store how to treat me. It created my new reality. It created the interaction that I had because I wasn't interacting with them from the past beliefs and past feelings I had about myself. I was interacting with them from a power place of the present, after having cleared and done the work. See, what I really want to get across today is that communication is not just what you're saying. It's what you believe about what you're saying. It's what you believe about what you're not saying. It's what you believe about yourself that creates behaviors, actions, attitudes, feelings that you emit into the world. That's where your communication starts. You can meet the most powerful person, and if their communication internally is on point, they may not be highly educated, they may not have the best grammar, they may not have the best articulation, but the way they move in the world communicates something to you about who they are to themselves. And you will treat them in the manner to which they believe they ought to be treated, right? So the reason this is so key is that as entrepreneurs, as business professionals, as powerful leaders, your internal communication, your internal dialogue is key because it influences your external communication, your external dialogue. It will be the number one teacher as to how people will choose to treat you. So that's what I got for you today. That's what I got. That's my 4th of July message. I trust it serves. The word today is mastermind. I love it. Thank you, Diane. She says, I'm going to just go through the comments. Diane says, thank you. Love how you worded this. You have such wisdom. Love how you share. Thank you, Diane. And that another one of my beautiful covenant sisters hailing from St. Louis, out supporting me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so this is what I want to leave you with, right? Is that each and every one of us has the capacity to be, do, have, and create anything we desire. Anything we desire. Anything that I or you want to create lives already within us. And what actually suppresses things and makes things unavailable to us is actually what we say to ourselves about ourselves, right? That is where it starts. So when we're talking about communication, I really want you to spend some time, one, being present to what might be unresolved in your world that's influencing your communication, right? The second thing is to watch your language, what you naturally say when things happen. Are you talking, are words coming out like I can't? Are words coming out like that's hard? Are words coming out like that's a challenge, that's a problem rather? Are words coming out like I don't have enough money? These are words that you're now using to create your reality. So the beginning of shifting it is being present to your own languaging. First internally and then externally. Look at what you speak into the world and be present to how it begins to create your reality. The word today is mastermind. If this serves you, I'm going to remind you to bless a life, share it on a page, share it in a group. Let this message live and take on a life of its own and be communicated to those who need it. If when you type the word mastermind, what it will do is it will ensure that we connect with you on like-minded topics. It'll ensure that whenever we give out a gift, and we do give them out, that you are able to receive. If we're doing something special, like we will have our mastermind experience coming up, you will be given first access so that you can register. So definitely put the word mastermind so we can stay in communication with you. My name is Suzanne Hart, and I am your Mindset Mastery Mentor. The question today was, are you reacting or responding in the world? My desire for you is that you choose to powerfully respond and you decide how the world is going to treat you, right? Through what you speak into existence, what you make live and become your reality. Blessings, everyone. Happy 4th of July. And I will be back here next Thursday with the beautiful Deborah Ferdinand. Take care.